Hi, I'm Morgan Dudley, and you are watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press. Today I am happy to be joined by Morgan Dudley. How's it going?
Hi, it's going so well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm so excited to dive into your new project, your new film, Descendants, The Rise of Rid, which of course just premiered last week. But before we get into the film, I wanted to cycle back, talk about your beginnings. You are originally from Hiram, Georgia. Who were some people or places in your community that cultivated your love of performing?
Oh my gosh. Well, honestly, for me, it started really, really young. I remember being in elementary school and actually taking like a painting art class. And our art teacher was a singer, and she would always like make up little songs. Like one of them was "Fill all of your white space with color." And I remember being like, "Oh, I like this little tune." But definitely throughout my life, I've always taken chorus, band, anything with music involved. And that's actually how I got into acting was through musical theater because I remember I was trying to find like any way I could in order to get in singing. And one of my teachers was like, "Oh, you should join the musical." And I was like, "Musical, got it. I'm gonna sing." But yeah, I just had like the best teachers and mentors growing up. My parents have always been super supportive. They're very musical people too. So yeah.
It must be so nice to kind of grow up in a household where it's very like encouraged and look not looked down upon. And we'll talk about music in just a bit and your own kind of journey with original music right now. But I know that you cited Zendaya as an early inspiration for you, Zendaya and Shake It Up specifically. So tell me about the love and respect that you have for her and her career.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was so obsessed with Zendaya when she was in Shake It Up. I think just because I loved performance. I loved watching her and Bella Thorne dance together, but of course I saw a little bit of myself in Zendaya as a kid, and so I was just really excited about that. Um, and then just like watching her blossom in her career has been really, really inspiring to me. Um, she feels like somebody who doesn't feel the need to prove herself. Like she just is. She's always just let her talent shine through and let her personality shine through. And obviously, I've never met her yet. I haven't gotten the chance, but her energy just seems so genuine and I could really feel that as a kid and I feel that now. And she's just somebody who inspires me and somebody who both career wise and personality wise I look up to a lot.
What are some of your favorite current projects that she's been in, like in the past few years?
Challengers, hands down. I just watched Challengers with Mars. We went together. Um, and we were literally gripping each other's hands the entire time. Like, this is such an amazing performance. She plays an older role very, very well, despite being only in her 20s and looking very young. Um, Euphoria was also amazing. I honestly I had a hard time like watching Euphoria, so Challengers recently has been my favorite.
Tell me about your move to New York to pursue the arts. I know it was originally for kind of Jagged Little Pill on Broadway as Frankie, but tell me about wanting a bit of that change of scenery from back home in Georgia.
I love that you question like oh sorry. I love that you phrased the question that way because I remember right before I moved to New York, I had been journaling about really wanting to get out of Georgia. Like I've always just wanted to experience what it's like to live in a city and to live in a city full of other artists. And moving to New York really like shocked my system, honestly, at first. Like I remember when I first moved here, it was so overwhelming and I was so scared and I was like, do I like this actually? Maybe be careful what you wish for. Um, but I remember just like a couple months in, I met my best friend and I met so many other amazing artists and people here. And I really felt myself like grow as a person and an artist because I think those two are just like intrinsically linked anyways. But Yeah, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. It's very different from Georgia. It's very different from a small town view. And I've kind of learned how to like kind of take me out of myself and just view things from a wider lens because of it.
You mentioned, finding your best friend and a group, but like a couple months in. So tell me about the community you found. Like, how did you manage to find new friends and like-minded people, especially in the industry?
Yeah, well, I think like partially it's because New York is so congested. Like we're all right here. There's like I remember like one of my first like couple weeks living in New York, I ran into one of my castmates from Jagged like on the street, which I would never would have thought would happen because I was like I thought New York was huge. Like I didn't know, but we're all right here. So, um it was relatively easy. I feel like we all were just always in the same spaces. I would sing a lot at 54 Below, which is like a huge thing here. People do like concerts and themes and whatnot, and that's a big way that people meet people here and parties and everything. I feel like everything just kind of intertwines. So it was it was easy, and I'm not even somebody who easily makes friend groups, but here it was like instant piece of cake.
And it's 54 Below. I spoke with Mars, and they mentioned that you're the one who introduced them to this group and kind of brought them in. And I know that they've since performed at 54 Below as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, I was like, Mars, trust me. Like, you gotta go to 54 Below, which they had heard of it before because Marzy's a theater kid. So, um, yeah, I'm honored. I'm honored to be the one to have held their hand through the door of 54 Below and kind of introduced them to my friend group. And they've also made their own friends. So.
And they have some really great theme nights as well, right? Over there, there's like different kind of show tunes or topics that you tackle.
Yeah, there's like they have anthems, they have artists, so like Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande. They have everything. They have Glee. Glee was a really big one that my friend music directs, and yeah, that one's like my favorite of all of them.
Tell me about music for you. I know you have an album that is waiting to be released. You've been working on it. Tell me about your journey as a singer-songwriter.
Oh, it has been like so cool. I started writing. I feel like I started songwriting relatively late. I started like my junior year of high school. So for a while now. But like I just always remember I would write things down and I would show my friends and they would always tell me that it was good, but um I could never like quite capture, I guess, what I wanted to say in a way that to me was like catchy or like it sounded like a professional song. And I remember that was something I was really nervous about when starting my journey. But it's definitely been something that the more you do it and you just let yourself like free flow on the paper, the more you get really good material. And I was so lucky to have my producer, who's also a songwriter. His name's Nick Green, and he helped produce Plastic Off the Sofa by Beyonce, which was insane. I was like, oh, no way. He was like, yeah, way. I was like, oh, that's so casual, you know? And he's like really helped me cultivate like my songwriting style and my sound. Um, and yeah, now I just have all these songs that I'm sitting on, like, ooh, I can't wait to sprinkle them out.
Prior to meeting him, was it just kind of self-taught in terms of songwriting and journaling? Like, did you watch any YouTube videos? Did you read anything on kind of how to maybe format songs and get more ideas out of you?
I probably should have, but I definitely did not. I I'm just really emotional. I'm a Cancer. And I've always journaled. I've always had to write down what I was feeling and like I literally have journals with like little teardrops like on the page and I've always had a lot to say. So, um I guess it was never finding what to say that was the issue for me. It was mostly just like finding rhymes and making sure it didn't sound corny. And I've completely learned through trial and error up until meeting Nick.
You play guitar and piano, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Do you have a
I
favorite of the two instruments or?
Yeah, definitely piano. Guitar, so this is so random, but my fingers are very like double jointed and they just bend on a whim. Like I don't have to apply any pressure. So when I play guitar, my finger always bends like on the string, and so it always makes that like twangy ringing noise. So I play guitar mostly just to get a melody or to like hear something and I'm like, oh, that sounds nice. But as far as like actually playing something, like something I would feel comfortable playing live, I think piano is definitely where it's at. I need to get in some lessons though, because I do like I play completely by ear. So I don't have any technique with either instrument. But
I
I
mean,
love
you've
piano.
made it this far already, which I think is great. And I mean, with originals, it's not like you need a lot of technique because I mean, you're formulating it yourself. The melody, you can kind of read the keys, so that's great. And I just love your diversity because you do everything from, you've done The Greatest Showman and Hamilton songs, but you've also done pop music like covers of Ariana Grande and that song Just Give Me a Reason. Tell me about your sound and genre for your original music. What artists inspire you in this area?
Oh my gosh. As far as like the artists that have inspired me in my career, it's definitely been Ariana Grande and Beyonce. Like those two are like my dynamic duo for life. Um, but funnily enough, my music sounds nothing like that. And I, for people I've let hear it, it's been compared to the likes of like Olivia Rodrigo, Taylor Swift. I definitely think there's some like Katy Perry elements to it just because I love pop. I love pop music. And just like that kind of groovy, like you can like put your hands up in the air and like roll the car windows down. That's my favorite kind of music. And so Chappell Roan is also a huge one right now. She's relatively new on the scene, new, but she's somebody who's been inspiring me very recently, sound wise.
When can we expect new music? So, are you able to share any details in terms of the album, like how many songs you have on the go?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna reveal too much about the album yet, just because we are still workshopping like what to put where, because I have so many songs. Like we really put our heads down last November and we're just writing. Um, but I do have a single coming out called Better Left Unsent that we can expect in August. Around like after D23 is over. After all that's over, and expect some music then.
And you have posted some teasers of that one on social media. And I was going to say, I love how it sounds. It's like this beautiful piano pop ballad. So I'm not sure if the piano will stay with it in the final cut, but at least you can perform it live and an acoustic. And you've also posted teasers of 21 and Intersections. So I know you have kind of a lot in your back pocket as well.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
And hopefully, when the time comes, there'll be a release show or something like that. I mean, can you already imagine performing your music live? Because that's something you haven't done in like a big setting before, any kind of release shows.
I know. I've imagined it like over and over and over again. I haven't stopped thinking about it since leaving California. Um, since we wrote the songs. I literally, this is my living room and I'll have to like put down my blinds sometimes because I can see my neighbors from here and I'll be like performing, coming up with like choreography or like, oh, I'm gonna do this and put this here and do that. Um, because stage performance is like my first love. Like I love performing, and so that's the part that I'm the most excited to do. So yeah, I can't wait.
Just the life of an artist in New York City, right? With the big windows and people can kind of see what you're performing and things like that. But we'll move
Yeah.
into film now. So if you're comfortable sharing, like how has being an artist of color impacted you personally in your career, positively and or negatively?
Definitely. That's a great question. I remember growing up, especially feeling like, and it was weird because it wasn't on my conscious brain, but it just carried itself in how I acted. I never felt like I could like see myself in a main role. I always felt like I deserved to be like in the background on a subconscious level because that's where I saw people who looked like me most of the time until I would see like Zendaya and China and McClain and Brandy and Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella. Those are people who really, really let me see myself in those bigger roles. But um, growing up and like actually being in the industry and getting auditions, I've even caught myself like questioning sometimes. There's a lot of times where calls will have like open ethnicity, and I will always question. I saw one time and it was like open ethnicity. And then I went into the script and it was like her blonde hair and green eyes. And I'm like, I feel like I'm not what you're picturing. And so it becomes difficult sometimes to picture myself when you know that other people aren't. But in a very positive spin of things, I feel like it's really taught me self-assuredness and to be able to see myself in those roles because sometimes other people don't see it for you, that you almost have to have like so much more confidence than anyone would ever have in order to see yourself to step into those roles. And I think that our industry is changing. I've seen so many people that I know get roles that I've seen before that said open ethnicity. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, look, like, it's all like, I never want to accidentally catch myself in a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh no, I can't do it. They won't see me. Because it almost inhibits you from really trying and really giving it a shot. And so I've learned a lot from being an artist of color, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think what it really comes down to, as you're saying, is being able to advocate for yourself. And it takes a lot of extra belief that you might not initially have, but I think it serves you well for, future projects and auditions and things like that. What does it mean to follow in Brandy's footsteps and play a younger counterpart of her, inspiring a new generation of young Black girls watching your performance of Ella?
It means the absolute world to me. Because like I said, like Brandy was huge for me when I was a kid too. But I think what's even cooler is how I get to play this Ella in like in tandem with how young girls can see themselves because obviously younger Cinderella grows up in like these circumstances that aren't fair. And I feel like my version of Cinderella, I'm able to kind of express that in a more human like way. I was really thinking about it the other day and how young girls are kind of indoctrinated growing up that we're always having to turn the other cheek. And, if somebody wrongs you, like the best thing to do and the best way to deal with it is to just take it and have a smile on your face anyways. And I'm just like, that's not the reality a lot of times. It's not healthy a lot of the times. It's good to be able to have an outlet and express yourself. Um, and I feel like this Ella really is able to do that. And she still has hope that things can get better. And then things do. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that a lot more.
And it's almost something where, especially in this day and age, you're like you wouldn't feel comfortable portraying that version of a girl who kind of just goes along with it and answers yes to everything, even if she didn't believe in it kind of wholeheartedly. So that's what's so great about this character and bringing it to this next generation. And we'll get into Descendants: The Rise of Red now. For all those watching, we are discussing spoilers here, so please make sure you finish the movie before continuing this interview. But what can you share, Morgan, about your audition process?
Oh my gosh, my audition process was so long and rewarding. I got my first audition, I want to say May of 2022. And it was for Red. It was for the character of Red. And I remember seeing like Descendants, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is meant to be. Because when I was little, I saw a little casting thing for it before anybody got cast in the original Descendants. And I was just so, so excited. And I did that. I got to meet casting, I got to meet our director. And I remember at the end of the day, they didn't feel that that role was right for me. And so they were so gracious and they were like, but you know what? Try Chloe. And I was like, all right. So I gave it a shot for Chloe. And I remember as soon as I read Chloe, I was like, this definitely isn't right for me either. But I knew, like, something in my heart knew. It was like, I don't know why. Like, my mind is reeling right now. Like, I really want to be in this movie. But something in my spirit felt so calm that I was like, I think I'm gonna be in this movie regardless. It's gonna be fine. Um, Moved on from Chloe, didn't get her, but I remember I got to meet Kylie at that time and she played Red. And we did some chemistry reads with her, and her dad were like the sweetest people ever. I was so nervous, and I remember she came up to me and she was like, "Oh, we heard you singing in there," because we had a singing, dancing, and acting audition. She was like, "You're so, so good." And I remember being like, man, like I really want to be a part of a cast like this. Dara Renee got announced. They both got announced at D23 of that year. And I still hadn't heard anything. And I was like, oh, I really want to be a part of this. And one day I got a call and they were like, like we really, really love you. Chloe isn't right, but we have this other character, Ella, and Brandy is gonna be playing the older version. We'd like you to be that role. And I was like, no freaking way. And that's how it ended up. And I think Ella's the perfect placement for where my soul, I think, wanted to be and where I should have been.
So to confirm, like you actually didn't audition for Ella formally. Like you went through kind of the audition processes for Red and Chloe, and then you got a call and they were like, "This part is yours."
Yeah. Yeah. I think that they just saw her in me somehow. And I'm just so grateful because they could not have been more spot on. I read that character and I was like, oh, yeah, this is me. This is actually just me in a more like one condensed sense. But yeah, that's correct.
That's fantastic that they saw that, potential in you. And you must have given them, a lot through your other kind of auditions and what you read for. And I thought that the casting was so spot on in this movie. Like everyone in their roles really fits like a glove. And so you are the perfect Ella. And I know that you wanted to kind of find your own version of her. Of course, Brandy does this excellent adult version, but in terms of like emulation, they're very different people when we meet Ella. So can you share anything about the conversation that I know you had with your director, Jennifer Fang, and how she helped you find your footing in this role?
Yeah. I mean, we just talked a lot about why. First of all, the why. Like, why are we choosing this path for a younger Cinderella? And it was really to give dichotomy between Ella and Bridget, like to see like a clear difference. And I think what was really cool about that decision is that I wanted this younger Cinderella to kind of have Bridget as her best friend, see her and learn from her. And I feel like what we see in this Ella is this very like blunt person, this very like, I don't got time for it person. But you also see a side of her, and this is something that me and Jennifer talked about all the time. You see a side of her that really loves Bridget for who Bridget is. And I feel like that relationship in this movie is kind of what hints at maybe where the hope that Cinderella has comes from and where it stems from. It stems from this character in this movie. It stems from Bridget. And so I really wanted to be able to show that through Ella.
Personally, what did you focus on in your portrayal with her voice, her mannerisms, and any of like the physicality and movement aspects?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I'm huge into zodiac signs, and I was like, Ella's a Capricorn, okay? Because little nerd tangent, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is like the planet of like hard life lessons. I feel like Ella goes through a lot of those. And I wanted to carry her with this sort of maturity because she is somebody who's forced to grow up pretty quickly and to have a voice for herself, have to do work that adults should be doing at a teenage age. And so I wanted to kind of like deepen her voice for that reason. And also, I took a little bit of like, Brandy has like this very, I can't do it the same way because for her it's very natural. It's not natural to me, but I tried to also like literally bring in the softness of Brandy's voice at times to show when Ella was being soft so that maybe it could bridge the gap between the younger and the older self.
I love what you said about that. I think in a previous interview, in terms of that softness, like giving it to Ella when it's earned in certain moments. So it's something that you kind of almost have to do like subconsciously, like where you are in the movie and what's going on in the scene. I know you mentioned the word blunt before. So how else would you describe her personality and like what are Ella's motivations and core values?
Mm. I think that her core values are honesty. She seems to me like somebody who's very true to herself, and she doesn't want to sugarcoat that. And I think that's what makes her blunt. Um, I think she operates a lot from a state of defense, just from being a teenager and from growing up under these circumstances. But I also think she's someone who values integrity. Um, and I think she values kindness as well. She is blunt, but clearly again I'm bringing up Bridget again, but she sees Bridget and that's her only friend at school and she's like I really value that and the other kids at school are not that and that's why I don't mess with them. That's why I am this way. That's why I'm blunt. That's why I'm honest. Um yeah, that's what I would say.
And in terms of Bridget, I love that you mentioned that because she does say in the movie that she recognizes how strong Bridget is and also how kind, and you can see that that's what she really values about kind of her and that friendship. Before we get into Bridget, I wanted to ask about Ella's apprehension towards royalty. Like, how deeply seated is that, and how do you think that started?
I think it's very deeply seated and I think that it just has to do with her stepmother and stepsister's obsession with status. And part of what me and Jennifer talked about was like, how did Ella get to Merlin Academy, right? And it was like we were just making up like a backstory of like, okay, well, Ella said that like she really wanted to go to the school because her stepsisters are going to the school and her stepmother's like, okay, but you have to work and I'm not getting you any clothes. You have to make your clothes. She goes to the school and all the kids make fun of her for what she's wearing, except for Bridget. And I think that's where that apprehension comes from of like royalty status, people like that think that they are better than me and they're not, and I don't like them. But Bridget's the only person that has shown me a different side of that.
And that's so key because it really just comes from her experience at home and something that she has to deal with every day. So it's hard to kind of, go out and think that the world is different than what you know.
Right, exactly.
Were there any other elements that you created yourself or discussed with Jennifer, the creative team, as to Ella's backstory and upbringing? So these would be aspects that, again, we don't see on screen, but helped you kind of shape and inform her, especially noting, her mother and father who have since passed.
hmm we like came up with like, well, first of all, I guess Ella does say that she doesn't really remember her mother, but we were like, okay, she had a dad and he was very naive and vulnerable because he was, hurt at the passing of her mother. And I think that she saw something in her dad that, like, I don't know, he must have been like a such a kind person that was taken advantage of by the stepmother and by the stepsisters. We also were like theorizing like, oh, he didn't die from natural causes. Like something happened. She's guilty, the stepmother. And so I think that loss for Ella was much greater and kind of already put that separation between her and her stepmother. I think she blames her stepmother in this version, at least.
And it's something interesting to think about because I'm sure that she maybe had at least a good relationship with her father, someone who could be a confidant. And now that he's gone, it's kind of like she doesn't have anyone that she can talk to at home. And while they do seem kind of wealthy, that's the interesting thing to think about. Like they have such a nice house and a nice property, but Ella considers herself to be a commoner based on the work that, she has to do and the role she has in that family.
Right. I think too, because she doesn't feel a part of the family. It's like she's almost outcasted as just somebody who works for them. And I think that that's something that she's just come to accept at the point that we see her.
So we'll get into Ella and Bridget's friendship. I know you kind of said um, this is how you think they met, as in, she went to school and Bridget was the only one who was kind to her. Did you consider those origins? Like, did you think about it yourself, or did you ever discuss it with Ruby and kind of were on the same page?
Yes, me and Ruby actually did like an improv scene together with Jennifer where we were like, okay, let's like improv our first meeting like as our characters. And it was like at the locker and Bridget was getting bullied again, like by Juliana or somebody else, one of the other VKs. And I stepped in and was like, hey, are you okay? Like, I see what happened over there. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. And so we just like had this whole improv moment of like how we met and how we became friends. And it really set up the foundation of like Bridget is just doing her best and Ella sees how the world can really be and does her best to protect her.
How long do you think that they've been friends, like from when we meet them in that, like the past or present day at Merlin Academy?
Ooh, I want to say they've been friends for 2.5 years, something like that, because they met in school. I think they met in high school, and I believe the characters are 16 years old. So I was 16 my junior year. So I'm gonna say we're juniors in high school now. So we've gone through it all together. 2 years, but it feels like forever.
Bridget mentions that Ella is her only friend. For Ella, is she friends with anyone else at Merlin Academy, or is Bridget her only friend as well?
I, yeah, I genuinely think that Ella and Bridget are each other's only friends. It's really interesting when I think of Faye and Charming though, because where are they? What are they doing?
I know, are they
Um,
just like acquaintances?
yeah, like I guess we just see each other around and Ella just doesn't bother to really I think that's the thing. I don't think Ella really bothers to even put herself out there. So even people that she could be friends with, she's just not, you know.
It's kind of like, does she want that? Maybe she, doesn't want to open herself up to more people kind of thing.
Yeah, because I mean, we see her with Charming and Charming's being nice, and she's just like, go away.
A bit turned off by that, and we'll talk about Charming and working with Tristan as well. But with bullying, like Uliana, she's said to be that constant bully in Ella and Bridget's lives. How would you describe the position that she and her crew hold at the school?
I feel like it's something that the school has accepted and that maybe they're not really being punished the way that they should, which is a great portrayal of bullying, in my opinion. I've had experience with bullying when I was a young kid, and I remember I would like tell the teacher, they'd be like, hey, this person's bullying me, and they would just kind of, well, what do you want us to do about it, sort of thing. And so we're in a school full of like magic and royalty. There's a lot of fairy tales going on at the same time. Everybody's dealing with their own stories and things. That I think it really just gives the VKs the space to run things.
During Life is Sweeter, Bridget, she comments that with more time and with more treats, others will also want to be her friend. And Ella, she gives this really obvious look of uncertainty. So, can you explain that reaction by her?
So, first of all, I'm laughing because I have seen this, like that part be replayed a million times because of all the fan theories. So it's like, Ella's the villain. No, she's not. It's just to like show that Ella's not Bridget. Ella's not the same and doesn't have the same worldview, but they're still friends. It's just another way to show their dichotomy. It's like, yeah, that's what she thinks. I'm here with her too. Like, it's like, like I know the real world and that ain't how it works, but I'm her friend anyway.
You're basically saying it's not that deep, but I think it really like does show how, Ella is not buying into that, being able to kind of bribe people to have their friendship kind of thing. How was the
Mm.
Life is Sweeter kind of choreography to learn and film as the big group number? And I know that it was I think it was Peter, someone told us that it was the first time like everyone was kind of together in one space.
Yes. Yes, I still have videos. We have a shared photo album. So I like looked through everybody's videos and we were all like videoing the first day of school because we were all together with the dancers and background and all of the characters. And it was like I think genuinely that was the most fun part to film because there was just so much energy. Everybody loves that song. Like it's so fun. So, you just keep hearing it be replayed over and over again. You get to like practice this little like fun dance that Ashley Wallen, our choreographer, did, and he's amazing. The dance itself is also just so fun. Like I'm just like we're swinging around. I'm over here doing the choreography, but it was truly one of the best days of filming, in my opinion.
And then to kind of get that duality between, the VKs and the good kids. And I know that you were all kind of circling each other, and you and Mars got to kind of, they were behind you and kind of staring you down as well.
Oh my gosh, that part was so hard for me. I feel like all the VKs were locked in, but we had to stand in that position sometimes, just like waiting for the cameras to roll. And a lot of the times I was in front of Peter and he stayed in it, and I would just be like looking at him and he'd be like this, and I'm like, Peter, please, I have to be mad at you right now. But no, that was a lot of fun too to like fake like with each other. I was so happy that me and Mars's little thing got added in that because that was we were like, oh guys, like we're doing something over here, and they were like, okay, but we were like, I don't know if they're gonna use that, and they did. So yeah,
A bit of extra screen time there doesn't hurt, but it's
yeah.
always interesting to think about this because you're filming it and the kind of little moments and beats that you were in, but you never know what's going to make the final cut in the editing room.
Right, exactly.
I loved your monologue after Chloe breaks the vase and Ella, she's talking about her emotional past, her current living situation, and family. How did you prepare for that dialogue and get into that appropriate headspace?
Yes. Hmm. I remember I have a funny story a little bit before I answer that, which was that we were in rehearsals for it one day, and it was me and Malia practicing it together. And I remember I just started like unleashing the beast on her, and she just like could not stop laughing at me. Like she was like, and I was like, what? And she's just like, you're yelling at me. And I laugh when people yell at me. And I was like, well, but I remember like I just really wanted to tap into like how helpless Ella probably felt in that moment, and just, she was already apprehensive to royalty and to Chloe, and she let them inside. Um, she's thinking everything's gonna be okay, and then something like that happens and she gets grounded and has to sleep in a barn. Like, we were there, we saw what happened. And I think I just wanted to really teach a lesson, I guess, there, because Ella her whole life has been a lesson. And I feel like for her, one of the ways to cope with that when caused by someone else like Chloe is to be like, look at what you did, and this is how life is. The end. And I felt like that was really the purpose for that scene.
I'm sure for Ella, seeing someone like Chloe, who, I mean, she doesn't flaunt it, but she can tell that she comes from privilege, those glass shoes and everything like that. And on that note, like, how would you describe that relationship with Chloe, starting from their first meeting in class? Like, what were those very first impressions, and how did they eventually evolve to an understanding throughout the movie?
Hmm. I think that Ella was pretty open in the beginning. I think she obviously like immediately she's probably going to treat her like she treats everybody else at that school, which is like, if you're royalty, like get over yourself. Like we have a project to do. Stop gagging over the plot. But I don't think that the apprehension really started to play until she came to the house and broke the vase. And that's when she was really like, okay, you're just like everybody else. You're gonna go home and be fine. And I have to deal with this mess you made because you thought that everything was just butterflies and rainbows. So I think it moved into that territory. And I think when Chloe comes back and Ella sees that she's making that effort during Get Your Hands Dirty, I think that that revives that openness that Ella had in the beginning, and probably even more so, and just being like, you know what? She may be royalty, but she came back and she helped me, and there's nothing else to say about that.
Definitely, like I would say, earning back a bit more of, the respect maybe that was kind of lost during that moment. And did she ever, take a second look when Chloe called her mom at school, or did she kind of just think like, are you like, is she joking?
Yeah, that's what I've always like took it as like, is this like, like, are you confusing me for someone? Is this like some humor I'm not aware of? I'm just gonna move on and not even question it, actually.
Yeah, because I noticed it's like she called her mom and she kind of gave her a bit of a funny look, but she didn't like kind of touch on that. Or maybe she just was like the blue hair, okay, maybe it's some
Or
inside
maybe
joke.
she's nervous, you know. I mean, if you've ever been in school, have you ever called your teacher mom or something? Like,
I don't know about a peer mom, but
yeah.
that was like kind of a funny moment there. Get Your Hands Dirty was my favorite song in the movie, and the little dance number that you did with Malia. So how was that to kind of work on together, like just the two of you?
That was a lot of fun. It was one of our Hands Dirty was the first day of filming. So it's the first thing that the movie ever did. And so me and Malia were still relatively new to each other. And I think that just being able to like sing and dance together and play in the dirt, because that's just fun. Like who doesn't like playing in the dirt? I don't like bugs or the outdoors, and I like playing in the dirt. Was a real bonding moment for the two of us. And um yeah, she's also just like the best person to work with. She's so funny, she's so smart and kind, and um it really made the transition into the rest of the movie so easy.
And with the song, was that kind of a message that stuck out to you in terms of the gray areas of morality?
Absolutely. I personally am somebody who always talks about gray areas and nuance and perspective. And so I was so excited to sing that song. Like genuinely. I was like, it goes back to me being like, I feel like Ella was for me all along because I love the message that it shows. And I think that in our just society and people as a whole, we could really use a message like that. Like, hey, like maybe something that you perceive as bad is actually doing something good. And maybe you need to look outside of your own point of view.
How long were Chloe and Ella supposed to be in the garden for cleaning up? Because a little movie magic, but they got all of that done in the span of that 2.5 minute long song. So, in actuality, did you ever consider how long they had to be in there to get it to look from where we initially saw it to that nice, pristine flower and everything was clean and sparkly?
Yes, I'm gonna say it took 3 hours. I think it probably had a slow start in the beginning, but I think when we see Chloe and Ella dancing together, like Chloe's probably been back into the swing of things because there was a lot of flowers, okay? And we just saw these two over here. So I'm gonna say it took 3 hours, and the last hour was like moving along.
There were some cute moments. I thought it was funny when Ella took that kind of wet old teddy bear from the fountain, and you're kind of like, how does this stuff get in here?
Yeah, I was laughing so hard whenever I first watched the video because I didn't remember like what angles we did or like what I was doing. I only like honestly I only remembered the dance sequence. So yeah, seeing myself make that face is also funny.
Now we'll get into Charming. What does Ella see in Charming? Like, what attracted her to him, and what kind of doubts does she have about pursuing anything that might be there?
I think that she sees his kindness and that he's just like we've talked about it, me, Jennifer, and Tristan, that he's kind of like just this like golden retriever boy, with arrogance, but like it's arrogance that kind of just exists within the unconscious mind and isn't something that he is actively trying to bring upon. And I think that's what Ella sees. I think she sees his charm and like how he just moves with such like the hair, come on, like but I think she just kind of denies herself the pleasure of having a crush on somebody who is royalty. And that is because, again, she sees herself as like an inadequate suitor, I think, because of how she's raised and because that's kind of what she's told on the daily.
That's so sad to think that, she could possibly not be worthy of that, or maybe feeling like, even if something were to happen, someone like maybe his family would never accept her kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, because it's definitely not, I don't think she thinks that she isn't good enough for him. It's more like, is he going to think I'm good enough for him? And am I going to have to prove myself? I don't want to do that.
I do wish that you and Tristan shared more scenes together because I thought the moments that they did share were nice to play off of, when she remarks that, yet he's always pushing that royal angle, even if it's kind of unconsciously or subconsciously. How was it to play off of his smooth charm and have Tristan as a love interest?
It was so much fun. I mean, it's funny because when we first met each other, we didn't really get along that well because we are so different. We really are. I was very like, no, 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 like in his ear, like trying to get him to talk. And he was really, really nervous because I'd been there first. I'd been there a bit longer than he had. And so it was kind of hard for us to bond in the beginning, but we bonded because we watched Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella together. I was like, you got to watch this movie. And then he was an instant fan. And so then after that, it was very like natural. I was just kind of looking at him like my friend and like the person that because we started to like grow really close off of screen. And so by the time we filmed that, it was just easy and kind of funny. It was a little funny. Like I had to really like drop in to be able to take it seriously because I don't know if you've ever tried to like pretend like with somebody that you know, but it is really funny. But he was a great scene partner and he's so talented.
And I know that you've said in past interviews you got to be there the first time that he met Paulo as well, and how special a moment that was for you to see as well as I'm sure for both of them. And I know you went to see like a movie screening together in June,
Yeah.
and he also went with you and some of the cast members to Disneyland for the first time.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's been really cool. I feel like Tristan's been a big part of my journey with this movie and just now just moving forward in my life and career. Like we're always supporting each other like that. But I have so many videos on my phone of him meeting Paolo that I haven't even posted or anything. And you just reminded me of it because he was so geeked and he was so nervous to meet him. But Paolo is like the nicest person ever. Like he's so accepting and he just took Tristan under his wing and Tristan was just like, wow. And it was great. I'm so happy I got to witness that.
You already debunked the online narrative about Ella kind of participating in that prank with Uliana on Bridget. But considering that she wasn't involved, did you consider why she maybe didn't care to help Bridget back then, which is kind of alluded to by the Queen of Hearts to Red as people being two-faced and too fake, and what kind of led to the collapse of their friendship back then?
I've always interpreted it as just she probably got swept away by Charming in a time that Bridget needed her. And Bridget had been bullied, but obviously in this movie, it alludes that she was going to be turned into a monster. And to me, that says like people who are scared and laughing, and like there's all these emotions probably running through Bridget that are so much more intense than any of the bullying she's encountered before. And every time up until then, Ella's been there for her. And instead, she's not, and she's happy, like somewhere else, probably without her. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where like um maybe you're hurting or something or let's say like somebody's hurt and your friend is just like on cloud nine about something and they're just like, "Oh, well, I had a great time," like kind of like that. I'm thinking Ella was probably just so have it Ella was having a new feeling too. You know what I mean? Like probably feeling like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so lovely and I want to share this with my best friend," but in the same vein being inconsiderate.
I'm curious, did you get a chance to reconnect with Brandy at the premiere at all? Like, did she give you any feedback on your performance?
I wish. Oh my gosh. I got to see her before we actually walked into the screening and take like a quick picture. But honestly, so much was going on at the premiere that I couldn't find her. And then when I finally did find her to take a picture, like there was other people trying to get her attention. So I just snapped it and then I was like, bye. I was so nervous. But I did get to see her though, and she's just so beautiful in person. I don't think I'm ever gonna get over it.
Tell me about creating Ella's signature look with hair, makeup, and wardrobe departments. How would you describe her style, and was it a collaborative process?
It was a little bit of a collaborative process. I'm moving my camera one more time. Okay. Um, yeah, it was definitely a collaborative process. I remember they already had like the design of like what they wanted her clothes to look like, of course, but I have some pictures. I can share them with you if you want, but I have like blank dresses and blank overalls that we wore so that I could pick like the type of thing that felt the most comfortable on my body. We got to pick our shoes. So I picked those like big old dogs because I was like, I'm a dogs girl. Like I picked the tennis shoes and then they like designed the butterflies and stuff over that. Because like, we're trying to go for like a homegrown, of course, still like descendants-ified because it's literally like gold string and stuff, but you can't really see on screen. And I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. But in person, it was like so shiny. We were like, oh, it's couture. We're couture, Cinderella. Um, but yes, and then like hair and makeup was so much fun. We had like the little mullet that was kind of already decided for me, but I was really, really excited because I've always wanted to dye my hair blue. Um, since I was a kid, since I was a little emo kid. So I was like, oh, we're here. And makeup the same way. I just kind of was like, yeah, this looks good. And Steven, who was the makeup artist at the time, was like, got it. This is your look.
Tell me about the wig that you had to wear. I love that you kind of compared it to not only the 80s mullet, but also like the 80s mom look as well with the bangs that you had.
Yeah, I loved the wig. I mean, it like went through a couple of iterations, and I remember like first time I wore it in Hands Dirty, the bang was like this, like it was like this big. I was like, guys, can we bring it down a little bit? And they did. So there's been a couple of like small little tweaks you can probably catch throughout the movie if you pay close enough attention. But I had a relatively easy wig. It was light, it was curly, it didn't go through too many changes, so we were all good there.
And with the Get Your Hands Dirty outfit, that one was the one that your Descendants doll wore as well. So does that have special meaning as well because of that?
I think so. I think so a lot because obviously we have the Ella doll and we also have the Cinderella doll. And to me, like the butterflies represent metamorphosis and like growing, like caterpillar to butterfly. And I think that that was the perfect outfit they could have picked for Ella, just so people can remember Get Your Hands Dirty and remember the message that Ella holds. But also just because it's so colorful. I love the little frills on the sleeves. That was probably my favorite part of the entire outfit. So cool. It had all these like gold detailings around it. I was nerding out to the costume department, I remember on set, and to the point that they would start being like, oh, after, like, you can come by the costume department and we can tell you about this, this, and this. And I was like, okay. Because they're just so talented and amazing. And yeah, the doll was perfect choice.
Tell me about the ensemble cast that you worked with and the bond that you share. And do you have any special behind the scenes memories that you haven't yet shared?
Oh, do I? Hmm, let me think. I do remember that we were all laying on the grass, like the fake grass, the turf, in like the scene and where we shot the where we shot the school scene. And at the time, I had like a mini lotion that I would like put on my hands or whatever. Remember, I was like looking over, and there were some of the dancers, and they kept looking at me, and they're like, and I was just like, what the heck? And then Joshua came over and he was like, it's you. Like he came over and just smelled me. He was like, it's you. And I was like, what's me? It's like we're all talking about how like we can smell like there's a smell. Everyone's like, what is that smell? And I look over and it's like all the dancers, it's all the ensemble cast, and they're like, oh. okay. I'm like, y'all can smell the lotion from all the way over here, and no one was gonna like, y'all are just gonna like over here. I was so nervous. I was like, is it bad? And they're like, no, like, keep up the good work. I was like, period. So that was a funny story.
You're kind of thinking like, did I put something weird on my hands? Like, why is everyone just staring at me?
Yeah. Yeah, literally. But apparently it's just because they all liked the smell so much.
What
Unless they were
fragrance
lying.
was it?
I don't remember. It was random because we shot like right after Christmas. Like, and I am from Georgia, and so I had been at home, and my mom got me all these little lotions, and I just picked one. I was like, "Oh, my hands are a little ashy." Let me just. It caused a commotion, but
Well, they liked it, so no harm in that. I'm curious, who was the first co-star that you reached out to, or vice versa, and kind of connected with?
Malia, I believe, and I don't remember who messaged who first, but I believe it was Malia reached out to me and was like mother or something like that. And we had like a cute little kiki over DMs, but pretty much all of us like DM'd each other this like a little thing. And then I can't remember who did it, but we set up a Zoom call. All of us announced cast in the very, very beginning before we knew anybody else, and we all introduced our. Ooh, I'm tripping on my words over here. We all introduced each other though from that Zoom call.
You did get to go on a press tour with some of like kind of these main cast members. You had your first big kind of press junket day that you got to do with Ruby and Dara. So tell me about those days, just getting to spend more time together with this group, build your friendship, and also have to keep the energy up during these interviews.
Definitely. I was just about to say, I feel like our bonding was keeping each other alive. Because we sat in those chairs for hours, just like, question after question after question. And a lot of them repeated themselves naturally because everybody wants to know, like, how was Brandy, how's Rita Ora, and how's China McClain? So we were like, how are we gonna like, let's like give each other ideas and bounce off of each other and how we're gonna make each one a little bit spicier, a little bit different than the last. But I remember my booty was hurting and we were sweating because they had to turn off the air conditioning because it was making a loud whirring noise. So we were just like, but I think we grew closer oddly because of that. And I couldn't have asked for better people to do that with because we all took it like champs and we were just like smiling through the pain and being like, we got this, guys. It's gonna be fun.
You all survived the press day, the press weeks, and you filmed a lot of TikToks for I know like they had an influencer day as well. So have you ever filmed so many TikToks in one day?
No, never. And maybe I should. Maybe it'd be a good thing to do that, but it was really cool to like circle in like influencers and like all of their ideas and all of their brains were so vastly different from the next. I think the only thing that we did like more than once was pass the phone, but other than that, like everybody was just so cool and creative and had their own vision for what they wanted us to do. And I think the influencer junket was one of my favorite parts of press. Cause I was just like, yes, I'll participate, whatever. Like, I remember we did a dance, Will Simmons, like we literally learned a dance and just did it together. And I was like, this is like cool press. So
It's keeping it fresh, basically, which I think is good to kind of, again, you're having to learn something new at the same time. So it's exercising your brain.
yes. And it made the day go by like that.
Should you return in future Descendants projects like a Descendants 5, what would you like to explore with Ella and any of the other characters and storylines?
Ooh. I definitely do want to see more of Ella and Charming just because I want to see kind of her transitional period and like when she starts to kind of change into what we see later in the Brandy Cinderella. I would love to see Ella evolve some in the next movie. And similarly, oh my gosh, because if Ella's there, that means Bridget's there. I would want to, if they need to go back in time. I would want to see what happens to Bridget. Like not like let it play out because I don't want her to become evil again, but like I just want to see that. I want to see like what happens to these characters in real time. That'd be really cool. And Red and Chloe's reaction to that. how they fix it.
I was disappointed we never got to see Castle coming. It was like this big build up and then it just didn't happen because obviously they went back to the present to kind of fix what happened there. But were you disappointed not to kind of get dressed up? But then the other thing is people noticed that she got grounded, so that could potentially throw the timeline off as well.
I don't know. No, I definitely wanted to go to Castle Coming because I want to be in a gown. I want to see what Descendants can do for Miss Cinderella's moment. But also it's really funny. I just had something. Let me think about it again. Because you brought up something that was really funny to me. I remember. I've always thought it was funny because I'm like, Red and Chloe had that moment when they were like, well, what if she's still like my mom? And I'm like, they could have checked. Like they could have gone to Castle Coming and like just checked it out and then been like, okay, we're good, everything's going okay. But they were like, nah, we're ready. We're ready to pack it up. This is enough adventure for the
That
day.
is so funny that you mentioned that as a cast member because it's almost like the same thing. And they had to deal with the runtime and everything like that with the movie. But yeah, you're like, if
Right.
it wouldn't have made any difference in terms of when they got back because they did, have the cookbook and everything like that, stop it from happening, then they could have went to Castle Coming,
Like,
checked in how their friends were doing instead of they had no goodbyes. They just were out of there.
yeah. But I understand they probably just missed their parents and wanted to be like, I think it's fine. Let's just go back. And
It was a
also,
bit
if
more
they
urgent.
check, exactly. But, if they checked, then maybe we wouldn't have the possibility for a second movie.
Gotta
So who
leave the
knows?
doors open.
Exactly.
What can you say about the fan response that you've received so far, and what has that support meant to you?
It has been at first shocking. I was like, oh wow, like people really love this character and they really like it's weird to say like coming from me, but I just get a lot of comments being like, "Oh, I look up to you, like you're inspiring me." I've seen some videos of little kids singing Hands Dirty or dancing to Hands Dirty. And I remember the first one I saw, I literally started sobbing because I'm getting emotional right now, but I'm gonna suck it back in. But just because I remember being a kid and I remember watching Descendants. I was like 14 when I watched Descendants specifically, but even like High School Musical, Camp Rock, all the DComs, Zendaya and Shake It Up, China and McClain and Ant Farm, like I saw those people and that's what inspired me to want to be a performer and to be an actor. And that's why I'm where I am and this current phase of my life. And I'm so happy and so grateful that I'm living out my dream. And to think that I could give the same thing to someone else and they're letting me know that is just like amazing. And it's like everything I could have asked for and wanted.
You also did get to meet some fans at the premiere and at VidCon in person as well.
Yes. And like it was so funny. I was telling my friend afterwards, I was like, I think I was more excited to meet them sometimes. I was having to hold it together because, like it's really nerve-wracking, I'm sure, especially for kids who are younger and they're like, oh my gosh, like that's her. And I was getting a lot of that. And I was nervous too because it was my first time ever meeting people who were there to meet me. And I remember I was just telling myself, I'm like, nope, you got to be strong for them because they're more nervous than you are. And, they're here to support you. So just give them all the love and joy. And that's what I did. And I'm so happy that I had that experience.
We will go through some tweets now. So if you could take those out, and I think there are five of them. So we'll have you read them and we'll see what's in there.
Okay. We have from Donathan XO. Ella and Charming are so cute. OMG. Oh, thank you. I think we're cute too. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
The moment where Charmin goes, well, if you happen to change your mind, and Tristan gives that giant like hair flip, is that something that you kind of laughed about behind the scenes before you went to film that?
Oh my gosh. So Tristan's hair flips were something that were a part of his regular personality because his long hair was just always in his face. And Jen just like caught wind of it and was like, Tristan, can you do a hair flip right there? And he was like, yeah. And so, yes, I literally had to hold in all of my tears of laughter, any kind of like that I felt in my body had to go away. And I had to really be swooned and just been like, wow, he just flipped his hair at me. How charming. Aero Ace Tamaki says, it was corny as hell, but the Gala Aladdin, he's like a magnet. She's so attractive bit stuck in my head. Kind of goes hard. It does, doesn't it? Actually, that was something that me and the cast were always singing to ourselves, or just if there were moments of silence, you could just hear in the distance, Gala Aladdin. Um, so I hope that you unironically use that as a term forever. Dano Gerwig, who I know, hey. I immediately need everyone hating on the Bridget and Ella ship edits to know that Morgan Dudley, who played young Ella, said, and I quote, I love gay ships. Um, I did indeed say that, and Dano caught me. Dano, you're always in my lives. I see you. I love you so much. I do love gay ships. I think that Ella and Bridget were in love. Nobody can tell me otherwise. And, if she was going to turn evil, maybe that was why. Maybe she was just mad. Not Nim Snook. I hope I said that right. The song between young Cinderella and her daughter in The New Descendants is genuinely a bop. I'm obsessed with it. You gotta get your hands ready. I'm glad you think so. That's one of my favorite songs in the movie too. Not to be biased, but it was stuck in our head for weeks. So I hope it gets stuck in yours too.
You need to do a full kind of cover and post that somewhere. I know you've done like a snippet of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so nerve-wracking. I need to get Malia on the track
Do
for
a little
sure.
duet, yeah.
Yes. Chantilly Marie says, Descendants, The Rise of Red just might be my favorite out of all the movies. It is definitely, I think what's really cool about our movie is that it's different. It's just like a different direction. It's still like a part of the Descendants universe, but it introduces Wonderland, which is like iconic. I love anything to do with Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland. I'm a huge fan of the original Descendants movies too. I feel like they're almost incomparable, but thank you.
High praise. And I think it's so nice to know that, you're kind of carrying on this legacy and it's being well received by fans, which is all that you could have asked for, especially people who are familiar with the original, like those first three movies as well. So I'm glad you kind of got to see those tweets. Are you on social media a lot watching the TikTok edits and seeing the response?
Yeah, I'm literally like TikTok has become my second home. I used to never use like social media or anything. I only recently started really getting into it for the fans and for the movie, and it's been something that I've just enjoyed so heavily. I always tell people to tag me in the edits because regardless of if I interact with them, because I'm so grateful I get tagged in a lot of them, so sometimes I can't. I'm looking at them all one by one. And so that's why I knew Dano, because I'm like, oh, yeah, I recognize this name.
On a more kind of like serious note, but you have said in the past that you did move schools due to bullying when you were younger. So if you're comfortable sharing, can you tell me a bit about how you overcame that period in your life and the message that you have for young people maybe going through something similar today?
For sure. Yeah, so I was really young when the bullying started. I've always been a very emotional person, and I remember as a kid I was very emotional, and that's where it started. It started there. People would be like, "Oh, you're such a crybaby. Oh, you cry over everything." And then it kind of just started bleeding into like, "Oh, your shoes are ugly. This is ugly, da da da." And when you're like really young, like you really want to impress your peers and you want people to like you. And I remember that all of it was really affecting my personality. Like I had to start going to counseling. I remember like seeing my eye flip to dust one time. I was like, and I was getting in trouble for like my reactions. And so that's why I moved schools. And I remember moving schools and I was starting to run into the same issue just because I think I was carrying a lot of that baggage with me as I moved to my new school. I was still crying. I felt like people were bullying me when they really weren't. They might have just been trying to point me in a different direction. And I remember um, that there was somebody in my class who decided to be my friend, and that changed everything for me. I remember I became her friend, and she had been at that school longer than me. She kind of introduced me to everybody else around her. And so, even in moments where I did feel outcasted and I didn't feel cool enough, I remember I started to become really rebellious as a kid, in a good way, not in a harmful way, of like, I'm going to be myself no matter what. And I don't have to be cool because I'm me, and being me is all that matters. And I've carried that with me ever since throughout all my life. And there are times when it gets tough and people are going to make fun of you no matter what. But something that I really learned is that if somebody wants to dislike you and somebody wants to bully you, they're going to find any way they can to do that, whether there's anything wrong with you or not. And so the best thing that you can do is to really get to know yourself and to really like yourself and like you for who you are. And that way nobody else can tell you who you are.
I appreciate you sharing all of that. And I know you have kind of talked about it in little waves in the past, and really about being able to also find healthy ways of coping, finding people who are there to support you, whether that's like a friend that you had or an adult. And I love this kind of tip you gave. It was more like kind of in general life lessons, but just practicing humanity and compassion in your everyday life.
Absolutely. Because I mean, and that's to me, again, the message of get your hands dirty, but there's gray areas in life. The people that are bullying you, there are no excuses for their bullying to you. However, know that a lot of the times it's not even about you, and you can't do anything to stop them or anything because it's really something that they're unhappy with within themselves.
And I know that as an artist, that's kind of been your outlet as well. So is it kind of nice to have that on the side and be able to, have these new characters and play a bit in another world too?
Yeah, definitely. I think that art in many, many ways has saved me from being just so affected by my life circumstances because it is an outlet, it is a form of expressing. And when you express, you can release. And I specifically remember the same art teacher that I mentioned earlier who would sing the songs. She would always say that the way that she stayed out of trouble was by creating and making art. And I've carried that with me no matter what, even in hobbies. Like sometimes I make little friendship bracelets, sometimes I do watercolor paint, and I'm not good at either of those things, but it helps me visualize what I'm feeling on the inside. And I'm just really grateful to get to do that even on a professional level and hopefully inspire other people to do the same.
Do you have any upcoming projects that you can share, or is it just the music right now?
It's music. I'm just really excited to drop my songs. It's like gonna be my number one focus for the rest of this year, but who knows, maybe something in the works.
We're all hoping for that big announcement after the expo. I know that a lot of the cast will be there, so fingers crossed. Obviously, you can't say anything, but it should be an exciting time to. I'm assuming you'll be there and get to kind of reconnect and meet some new fans as well. Now that the movie's been out and it's kind of soaked in.
Yeah, and word rumor has it, I think I'm gonna be wearing my Ella costume, which is crazy. I didn't know that until
Love to
yesterday. So
revisit that as well, right? Get back into character.
exactly. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I have one more question for you, our signature question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
I would be mint chocolate chip because I'm not for everyone. And it's the best. I'm just kidding, but yeah.
That's a great answer and a nice way to end things off. Thank you so much, Morgan, for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, well, hopefully we can catch up again in the future. But until then, for all those watching, you can catch Morgan in Descendants, The Rise of Red, which is streaming now on Disney Plus, and we will see you next time.